Sometimes the greatest transformations don't begin with courage, strength, or luck, but with a single, almost invisible step that no one notices except the one who dares to take it. Wali was a quiet 17-year-old boy from a small mountain village, a place where life always looked the same. Same roads, same faces, same routines repeating like the sunrise. But inside Wali's heart, something was restless. Every evening, he sat on a rock above the valley, watching the distant city lights sparkle like a promise. "One day, I will change my life," he whispered. Yet days passed, and nothing changed. Wali wanted big results, quickly, immediately. But he feared starting small. He feared starting alone. One night, an old shepherd named Rahim stopped beside him. "Why do you always look at the city instead of walking toward it?" the old man asked gently. Wali sighed. "Because the journey is too long, and I don't know where to begin." Rahim smiled, his eyes glowing with wisdom shaped by years. "My son," he said, "every road, even the one that reaches the stars, begins with one small step. Not a big one, not a perfect one, just a step." Wali looked down at his feet. For the first time, the road didn't seem impossible. Maybe he could start, just a little. And that night, he made a promise to himself. "Tomorrow, I will take my first step." The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, Wali stood at the edge of the village path. The world was quiet. Even the birds hadn't begun singing. His heart beat hard, harder than he expected. It was just a walk, but to him, it felt like the beginning of a new life. He took a breath, then another, and finally, he stepped forward. It was a small step, a simple one, but to Wali, it felt like crossing a mountain. As he walked, he noticed something strange. The road that had always looked endless from far away now looked clear, calm, almost welcoming. After half an hour of walking, he reached the old wooden bridge, a place he had never crossed alone. He hesitated. The river below roared loudly, as if warning him to go back. But then Rahim's words returned to him. "Every road begins with one small step." Wali tightened his fists, lifted his chin, and crossed the bridge. On the other side, he felt something new. Not strength, not courage, but momentum. The quiet power that grows each time you keep moving. He smiled for the first time that morning. This was only the beginning.
Wali continued walking beyond the bridge, entering a part of the valley he had only heard stories about. The air felt different here, fresher, colder, filled with the scent of pine and wildflowers. For years, Wali believed the world outside his village was confusing and dangerous. But now, taking each small step, he realized something surprising. The path became clearer the more he moved forward. After a while, he reached a steep hill. From the bottom, it looked impossible to climb. He stared at it, feeling doubt return. "Maybe I should go back," he thought. "Maybe I'm not ready." Then he remembered yesterday, how nothing had changed in his life because he never began. So he didn't think about the top. He didn't think about success. He didn't think about the future. He focused on one small step, just one. He placed his foot on the first rock, then the second, then the third. Minutes passed. Sweat covered his forehead. His legs burned. But he kept going. Not fast, not perfectly, just steadily. When he finally reached the top, breathless, he looked back and saw the long hill behind him. It hit him like a warm light through his chest. The hill wasn't conquered by strength, but by small steps taken again and again. For the first time in his life, Wali felt proud, not of where he arrived, but of how he got there. And as he stood on that hill watching the path ahead stretch toward the distant city, he whispered, "If small steps brought me here, where else can they take me?" Wali began descending the hill, his heart lighter than it had ever been. Something had changed inside him. The fear that once held him still was slowly fading with every step he took. As he walked deeper into the valley, he noticed things he had never seen before. Not because they weren't there, but because he had never moved far enough to find them. A hidden spring flowing gently between rocks. Bright orange birds singing as they flew from tree to tree. Old carvings on a stone wall left by travelers from long ago. The world around him felt richer, almost magical. And Wali realized a profound truth. When you stay in the same place, life looks small. But when you move, even little by little, the world opens itself to you. After an hour of walking, he reached a fork in the path. Two roads stretching in opposite directions. One path was smooth and straight. The other was rocky, narrow, and clearly more difficult. Wali hesitated. The easy path looked tempting, but something inside him whispered that it wouldn't take him where he wanted to go. He closed his eyes and repeated the promise he made to himself. I will take small steps, even when they are hard. So he chose the difficult path. The rocks hurt his feet, branches scratched his arms, but step by step he kept moving. And just when he thought of stopping, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned around. Standing there was the old shepherd Rahim, smiling gently. "Wali," he said, "I wondered how far your first step would take you." Wali's eyes widened in surprise. You followed me?" Rahim shook his head. "No, my son. I simply took my own steps, and they led me to you." Wali felt a strange warmth in his chest, the feeling of not being alone on the journey. And the old man added softly, "You see, when you walk with sincerity, the right people appear on your path."
Wali and Rahim continued along the narrow, rocky path. The deeper they went, the quieter the forest became, almost as if it were listening to their steps. After some time, Wali's legs began to ache. He slowed down, breathing heavily. Rahim noticed. "Are you tired?" he asked gently. Wali nodded. "A little. It feels heavier than before." The old man chuckled softly. "That's because you stopped." Wali looked confused. "I don't understand." Rahim pointed to the trail behind them. "When you keep moving, even slowly, your body adjusts. The weight becomes lighter. But when you pause too long, you feel everything. Fear, doubt, pain." Wali thought about it. It felt true. When he walked steadily, the journey felt almost natural. But the moment he hesitated, the path suddenly looked long again. Rahim continued, "Life is the same. Momentum is a gift. Lose it, and even the smallest step becomes heavy." Wali breathed deeply and took another step. It felt a little easier, then another, easier again. He realized something important.
The journey only felt impossible when he wasn't moving. As they continued, the trees opened up to reveal a breathtaking view of the valley below. Green hills, a silver river, and the faint outline of the city far on the horizon. For the first time, Wali didn't feel overwhelmed by how far the city was. Instead, he whispered, "If I can take one more step today, I can take another tomorrow." Rahim placed a hand on his shoulder, smiling proudly. "Exactly, Wali. Great change never comes from one big leap. It comes from 1,000 small steps taken with patience." The boy felt lighter, not because the path changed, but because he did. Wali and Rahim walked until they reached a clearing. Wali's legs were tired, but he noticed something surprising. He wasn't struggling like before. Rahim smiled. "You see, your body learns, your mind learns, one step at a time." Wali looked around and saw tiny signs of progress. He had climbed hills, crossed bridges, and walked farther than ever in his life. Yet none of those moments felt huge when they happened. They were all small wins. Rahim picked up a tiny pebble from the ground and placed it in Wali's hand. "This pebble is small, but if you collect one every day, you can build a mountain." Wali closed his hand around it, feeling encouraged. For the first time, he believed it. Small steps really were changing him. The next morning, Wali woke up early and continued walking with Rahim. But unlike the day before, something felt different. His mind was noisy. What if I fail? What if this journey leads nowhere? What if I'm wasting my time? Doubt, quiet but powerful, crept back into his heart. Rahim noticed Wali's silence. "You're thinking too much," the old man said softly. Wali sighed. "I thought taking small steps would make everything easy, but today I feel lost again." Rahim shook his head gently. "No journey is easy every day, Wali. Even the strongest walkers have days of doubt." He pointed to the path ahead. "But small steps don't remove doubt. They help you walk through it." Wali took a deep breath. He didn't feel strong, but he lifted his foot anyway. One small step, then another. Doubt was still there, but it no longer controlled him. And with each step, it began to fade. As Wali and Rahim continued forward, they saw a man sitting by the roadside. His clothes were dusty, and he looked exhausted, as if he had walked much farther than they had. Wali slowed down. "Should we help him?" he asked. Rahim nodded. "Small steps aren't only for yourself. Sometimes they lift others too." They approached the man. "Are you all right?" Wali asked gently. The stranger looked up with tired eyes. "I'm fine. Just lost my strength. I've been traveling for days." Without thinking, Wali offered him his small water pouch. The man drank slowly, relief washing over his face. "Thank you," he said. "Most people walked past me." Wali felt a quiet warmth, a small, simple act, yet meaningful. Rahim smiled proudly. "You see, Wali, when you move, you don't just change your life, you touch others too. Even a small gesture can lift someone." The stranger stood up, steadier now. "I can continue," he said, bowing gratefully. As he walked away, Wali realized something new. Small steps don't just create big changes, they create big kindness too. Wali and Rahim walked until they reached an unexpected obstacle, a tall stone wall.
covered in vines, blocking the path completely. Wali froze. His heart sank. "How do we pass this?" he asked, feeling frustration rise. Rahim examined the wall calmly. "Most people turn back when they see something like this." Wali sighed. "And what should we do?" Rahim smiled gently. "What we always do. Take one small step." He pointed to a loose stone near the bottom. "Remove that one." Wali bent down and pulled it out. Then another stone loosened, and another. Piece by piece, a small opening formed, just enough for one person to squeeze through. Wali stepped back, eyes wide. "I thought the wall was impossible." Rahim nodded. "That's the mistake many make. They see the whole problem instead of the first small action." Wali touched the opening he created with his own hands. What felt impossible minutes ago was now behind him. One tiny effort at a time. After squeezing through the opening in the wall, Wali and Rahim entered a quiet, open field. At the far end stood a long, steep hill, taller than any Wali had faced before. For a moment, he felt his courage shrink. "It looks too high," Wali murmured. Rahim nodded calmly. "Yes, but height only matters when you look at the top. Look at your feet instead." Wali lowered his eyes to the ground. One step, then another. The climb was slow, almost painfully slow. Yet something interesting happened. The more he focused on small movements, the less he worried about the hill. Minutes passed, breath after breath, step after step. And finally, Wali reached the top. He turned around shocked at how far he had climbed. Rahim joined him and said, "When you silence your fears by moving forward, even the highest hills bow to you." Wali felt a calm confidence he had never known before. Small steps were no longer just actions. They were becoming a habit. As they continued their journey, clouds gathered above the mountains. The wind grew colder, and soon rain began to fall in thin, sharp drops. Wali wrapped his arms around himself. "Rahim, maybe we should stop," he whispered. Rahim didn't answer. He simply kept walking, steady and calm. Wali hesitated. Everything felt heavier in the rain, his clothes, his steps, even his thoughts. "Why am I doing this?" he wondered. "Why not just go back to my old life?" He finally stopped, breathing hard. "Rahim, I can't do this anymore," he said quietly. The old man turned and looked at him with kind eyes. "You don't want to stop," Rahim said softly. "You just want the difficulty to end." Wali felt those words strike something inside him. Rahim took a small stick from the ground and drew a short line in the mud. "This," he said, "is how close many people are to their breakthrough when they give up." Then he drew one tiny step beyond it. And this small step is the difference between stopping and succeeding. Wali looked at the line, then at Rahim. He lifted his foot. One small, wet, heavy step. But it crossed the line. Rahim smiled. "There, you didn't quit. You just kept going." Wali felt a quiet fire return in his chest. The rain softened into a gentle drizzle as Wali and Rahim kept moving. After some time, they reached a small wooden shelter by the road. They sat inside to rest. Wali stared at the drops sliding down the roof. "Rahim, why does progress feel so slow?"
he asked. "I walk every day, but the city still looks far." Rahim smiled softly. "That is the nature of real change, Wali. Fast results fade quickly. Slow progress lasts." He picked up a small leaf blown inside by the wind. "Look at this leaf. A tree doesn't grow all at once. It grows quietly, little by little, until one day it stands tall." Wali nodded, understanding a little more. Rahim continued, "When you take small steps, you are not just moving. You are becoming someone new." Wali looked at his feet, muddy and tired. He didn't feel fast. He didn't feel strong. But he felt different from the boy who stood afraid at the village path days ago. Maybe slow was not a weakness. Maybe slow meant steady. He stood up, feeling a light determination. "Let's keep going," he said. Rahim smiled. "That's patience speaking, and patience always wins."
The path eventually led Wali and Rahim to an old wooden bridge hanging above a deep gorge. The wood creaked under their feet, and the wind whistled through the canyon below. Wali paused at the center, gripping the ropes. Rahim asked, "What do you see?" Wali looked down at the swirling river far beneath them. "I see how far I could fall." Rahim shook his head gently. "Look again." Wali lifted his eyes. Across the bridge, the land rose toward a brighter horizon. Behind him, the path stretched back toward the mountains he had crossed. He suddenly understood. The bridge wasn't about danger. It was about perspective. Rahim spoke softly. "When you walk far enough, you see both where you came from and where you are going." Wali turned around and saw the hills, the forests, the wall he broke, the hill he climbed, the doubts he walked through, the rain he endured, the kindness he showed, the patience he learned. None of it felt small anymore. Every tiny step had become a piece of his strength. Rahim turned to him. "You were looking for a big change, Wali, but the change was happening inside you all along." Wali smiled, a quiet, confident smile. "I thought I needed courage, but I only needed to start." Rahim nodded, eyes shining. "That is the secret of all journeys. Small steps create big changes because they create a new you." Wali stepped into the city, not as the uncertain boy he used to be, but as someone transformed by persistence, patience, and small, steady movement. And he whispered to himself, "If one step can change my life, I will never stop walking." The path eventually led Wali and Rahim to an old wooden bridge hanging above a deep gorge. The wood creaked under their feet, and the wind whistled through the canyon below. Wali paused at the center, gripping the ropes. Rahim asked, "What do you see?" Wali looked down at the swirling river far beneath them. "I see how far I could fall." Rahim shook his head gently. "Look again." Wali lifted his eyes. Across the bridge, the land rose toward a brighter horizon. Behind him, the path stretched back toward the mountains he had crossed. He suddenly understood. The bridge wasn't about danger. It was about perspective. Rahim spoke softly. "When you walk far enough, you see both where you came from and where you are going." Wali turned around and saw the hills, the forests, the wall he broke, the hill he climbed, the doubts he walked through, the rain he endured, the kindness he showed, the patience he learned. None of it felt small anymore. Every tiny step had become a piece of his strength. Rahim turned to him. "You were looking for a big change, Wali, but the change was happening inside you all along." Wali smiled, a quiet, confident smile. "I thought I needed courage, but I only needed to start." Rahim nodded, eyes shining. "That is the secret of all journeys. Small steps create big changes because they create a new you." Wali stepped into the city, not as the uncertain boy he used to be, but as someone transformed by persistence, patience, and small, steady movement. And he whispered to himself, "If one step can change my life, I will never stop walking."